to the Quickscreen Show. I'm your host, Nate Albaugh, and I am here today with head football coach of Sevier County High School, Steve Brewer. Coach Brewer, thank you so much for joining us here.
Well, my pleasure, Nate.
And you are my first official guest on the Quickscreen Show, which has been around since July, and I pulled in today to Sevier County High School, and I saw some gorgeous facilities that you told me this is not uncommon in Tennessee.
No, it's not. There's a lot of good facilities, a lot of people taking their athletics and especially football pretty serious. So that's good. We benefit from that, yeah.
Good, and I'm sure it doesn't hurt to be next to such a storied college program in Tennessee. Would you say that just the level of football maybe down here, or the history of college football has trickled down into high school?
Well, it certainly is a big thing, and of course Tennessee we hope is on the upswing. But I mean, you know, people plan their weddings and everything else around football, and so it is a big thing. It's a huge event in the South and in Tennessee in particular, and so yeah, it does trickle down. You know, kids grow up enjoying it, wanting to participate, and so it's a healthy situation for high school football.
Today, as always, we're going to talk about coaching football, and today's topic is 5 things that you want to get done in spring practice. Now, just to preface it, in Illinois, we do not get spring practice. They don't get spring practice, I know, in Indiana, and I'm sure several other states don't get spring ball. However, I know there are a lot of coaches out there that watch this show, too, from around the nation that do get spring ball. So let's talk the specifics of spring ball. I can't be much help here, which is great that I have an expert here with me. If we had to name something, and I'll kind of just turn it over to you and bounce questions off of you as we go. But as you just kick us off, what are some things you got to get done in spring ball?
Well, I think there's a lot of important advantages in spring football. One, like this year, we lose about 22 seniors. So we obviously are curious and anxious about who's going to take their place. We have that opportunity in spring football because we have 10 days. We go full pads, and we even get a scrimmage or two. So that gives us a good opportunity to evaluate players and to see who's going to step into the shoes of those that we lost from the last year's squad. Now, the importance of that is if we don't do it in the spring, then that means the first week or two in the fall, we're still searching. We're searching to find out who can fulfill those roles. If we get that done in spring practice, now we can go on to implementing our game plan, but our offense, our defense, and you know, our progression that we like to do. But you know, if we don't have spring practice, then we got to spend. We don't know who's going to be in those positions. Sometimes you don't even know what you can do offensively and defensively if you can't get those holes filled that were caused by graduation. So that's a big thing. Number one is you know, just finding people to fill in for those guys you lost the previous year.
Now, do you have spring scrimmages against other schools?
Absolutely.
2 games, you said?
Up to 2, yeah.
Up to 2.
We generally have 1 because, to be honest, you know, if you practice 1 week, you got to understand these guys haven't put on a uniform since November, so it's going to be pretty sloppy. Sometimes it's pretty sloppy after 2 weeks. But it's good to get out there and go against some competition, and that, again, helps you evaluate where kids are. Evaluation, I think, is pretty critical, and you get a lot of it done in spring practice and in that spring scrimmage.
So you're going to film everything?
You film it, and you look back over it, and then you start evaluating. And, of course, you know, as well as I do, coaches, they sit around in the summer, and they start looking at their personnel groups, and they're wanting to know who's going to take this guy's place and who's a possibility here, and spring practice helps you in that evaluation. You may not answer all your questions, but certainly if you lose 22 seniors, hopefully you're going to be able to find some people to fill some of those spots before fall practice.
Okay, so you're going to evaluate personnel. Let's move on. Number 2, what else we want to get done?
Well, number 2, I think, you know, if you want to try anything new, if you want to see how a new defensive scheme works, maybe, and you know as well as I do, in high school football, you've got who you've got. It's not like you can go out and recruit to your needs. So maybe the year before, maybe you ran a 50 defense. Well, maybe you've got more good linebackers that you need to put on the field. You want to go to a 4-3. That's a good time to implement that, to see if it's going to work. Same thing offensively, you know. You may lose a great throwing quarterback, but you got two real horses back there in the backfield. You may want to run the ball a little bit more. You may want to go to a tight end two-back set. That's a good time to do that in spring practice, to introduce that so that you don't have to do all of that in the fall. Plus, it helps you to see, is it going to work? What's it look like? Is this something that our kids can adapt to and adjust to? And so it's a good opportunity for you to, try something new.
Now, what's that breaking point for you as the head coach? You know, you mentioned you have an offensive and a defensive coordinator. What's that breaking point? And I'd imagine there's a lot of, when you have good men that you work with, they may have a great idea, they want to really try, and you maybe are overseeing it and say, yeah, let's see how this looks. Maybe that happens with you, maybe it doesn't. What's that breaking point for you that says, I don't like what I've seen, we're cutting it? What would that point be where you'd say, I don't like it, we're going to cut this out?
Well, I think you have to be careful with that because, I've seen some pretty bad practices. I've seen a couple of bad weeks trying to get this done. But I think there just comes a point, and I think you know it, if the players aren't responding, if the execution and the production's not there after a couple of weeks, then, it's time to reevaluate and to adjust. And that's interesting that you'd bring that up. You know, one of the things that we like to do, and this is getting a little bit off subject, but it relates to your question. When we grade, I think everybody probably grades their game film. We always grade ours on Friday night after the game. We find out that if we win, we're either too excited to go to sleep. If we lose, we're too depressed to go to sleep. So we might as well just, I'd rather sit here watching video as sit at the house at 2 o'clock in the morning just sitting there. So we evaluate our film. But one of the things, and we got this from Sparky Woods at VMI, one of the things we do after we grade each position, we'll ask 2 questions. Were we assignment sound? Did all 11 players know what to do? Now, they might have missed the block, but did they go to the right person? They might have missed a pass, but did they run the right route? Are we assignment sound? And so we'll ask all the position coaches, did your guys know what to do that play? Mm-hmm. And if all 11 do, the offense gets a check. If one person doesn't, the offense gets a minus. And the second question we'll ask is, did all give all? And, any loafs? Did anybody loaf? That's a minus for the whole unit. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, we found that if, just 50% of our plays, all 11 people know what to do, we wind up scoring a bunch of points.
No kidding.
It's unreal. So, that's an event. So, again, if we find out during the course of the season that, hey, we're 30% assignment sound, well, either we've got somebody that's not getting it or our offense is not getting it because we're not executing at a high enough level.
Right.
We're busting too many plays, so maybe we need to go back. So that might be a time where I say, hey, guys, 2 weeks in a row, we're at 30%. We got to change. We got to cut some things. Mm-hmm. These guys got to know what to do or we're not going to obviously produce very much.
And that's great. That gives you a tangible number to help with your staff when you're saying, instead of it just being your opinion, I don't think this is working for us. You've got a tangible number. Say this number is too low.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember one game, our execution was horrible. It was 38%. We only scored 17 points, but our defense had a 97% all gave all. In other words, 97% of the defensive plays, all 11 players did not loaf, and we won 17-14, and that's the reason why. So it's good to go back and not only talk to your coaches about that, but to your players about that too. See what effort got you tonight. It got you a win because we didn't do nothing on offense. So anyway.
That's a great tool. We'll be stealing that one from you.
It is. Well, I stole it from Sparky Woods at BMI, so there you go.
Okay, number 3, things we got to get done in spring practice.
Okay, so we've mentioned replacing your personnel, implementing offense. The other thing about spring ball to me is we play a contact sport, and there's a lot of injuries in our sport. And to me, the more technique work our players can get, the more work they can get learning how to properly tackle, learning to keep your head up, learning how to run the football, a good body length. I mean, learning all these things, not leading with the head. The more practice, technique work they can get with that, I think the safer they're going to be. And, I mean, our sport is not one that you can, it's a contact sport. So let's have that 2-week period to teach and reaffirm how you do it, especially when you lose a bunch of seniors and you've got other guys trying to fill those needs. It's important for them to know the proper techniques and how to play the game safely.
Now, will your spring practice, according to that, will your spring practices look anything different than a fall practice? Is it organized differently at all?
There actually may be a little bit more contact. Usually when we go in the fall practice, we have, the preseason practice, which probably has a little bit more contact. But then once the season gets here, the game week gets here, we want to execute and we want to practice, but we also want to protect. And so we might not have just the knockdown dragouts that some coaches may differ with me on that, but we just try to rep things. We want our players to know what to do, and then on Friday night we want to turn them loose. But in spring practice we may have a little bit more contact, and again, that's because there's really only one way to practice tackling, and that's to tackle.
Right.
And our defensive coaches do a great job. We have tackling circuits just about every practice, and we're trying to emphasize leading with the hips and keeping the head up and all those things. So here again, it's a safety factor for us.
So in order to get just technique work in, though, individual periods, same amount of time, a little bit longer, what would you say?
We generally try to go around 2 hours. I think really after that you kind of kids start to lose their focus. I mean, we're talking about a generation which has been they've been raised entertained. They've got games to entertain them, they've got movies, they've got internet, they've got all these things to entertain them. 2 hours of practice probably max them out. I think you start losing them after a couple of hours. So it is incumbent on coaches to make sure that those 2 hours are very structured. There's not a lot of lag time, not a lot of non-scripted, non-scheduled minutes. And one of the things we do to help in that, we have a practice clock that's set for 5-minute segments. Okay. So if we go 2 hours, that's 24 periods. And so once that clock starts, it rolls, and the coaches know that. So if they've got a 10-minute period to work on something, don't waste your time talking. You better be working on it, So, and we benefit because we have our players 4th period. We're on a block schedule, so we have them down here 4th period, so we can benefit by getting them on the board and saying, this is what we're going to be doing today. So we can talk about it sometimes in here before we actually get out on the field. So that helps.
Now, I don't want to belittle this. You have a football class?
We have an advanced PE class, yeah. Our kids.
For football players?
Yes, yeah.
Man. Okay, I think sometimes I wonder, I would like to be coaching sometimes in other states. That's a great tool.
Come by tomorrow. You'll see this weight room full. Now, we've got some kids that are in other sports, but, the weight room will be full of everybody that's going to be playing next year that isn't in another sport. And, I mean, they work. It's not an easy PE grade.
Sure.
Not an easy PE grade.
Wow, that's a great tool.
It is a great tool.
Okay, number 4 thing you want to get done in spring practice would be what, Coach?
You want to find some kids that you're not counting on. We have several kids playing baseball. We have several kids running track, and as long as they're in those sports, I don't let them come out for football. I want them to excel in those sports. Last year, on our track team, our starting outside linebacker, our starting cornerback, our starting wide receiver, and then we had a senior that had finished his senior year here. They're on the 4x1, 4x2 teams, and they finished 3rd and 4th in the state. And one of the kids finished 2nd in the 200. Those kids never practiced in the spring. They never did. And so, you go to scrimmage without guys like that who can run, and it shows. But the thing that it forces us as coaches to do is it forces us to look at that guy that we really wasn't counting on. Now he's all of a sudden going to get 2 weeks worth of work. It's going to make him a better football player. It's going to give us a chance to evaluate him and make sure that we're not making a mistake,
Right.
with him. And we found some players, during those times where players in other spring sports were not there. You had to plug somebody else in, and you find some things out. So it gives you a chance to work the kids that otherwise may not get very much work.
Man, that's great right there.
It
Coach.
is, and it's a great opportunity for those kids, to say, hey, this is your chance, okay? We're going to look at you now. You got 2 weeks here. We're going to see what you can do at receiver, or we're going to see what you can do on the offensive line, okay? Because, the guy that's projected to be there is not here. So
Right.
you've got an opportunity to show us what you can do. So, that would be the other, I think, advantage and the
Yeah.
importance of spring practice.
And even better, you get to see that kid not only just in practice, but in a scrimmage against another team. And
yeah.
that's where you can really find out if he can play
Yeah.
at that level.
Exactly. So it's a win-win.
Number 5, final thing you would recommend to coaches, got to get this done, or is it great? This is great about spring ball.
Well, the thing that I think we need to realize about football is we are unlike any other sport. In order for us to play the game, we've got to put on helmets, shoulder pads, girdles, knee pads, hip pads, thigh pads, whatever. No other sport in high school has to don that kind of equipment to participate.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not a knock on other sports. I'm just saying, basketball, you can play basketball all day long. Baseball, the only thing you have to put on is a catcher's mask or a helmet.
Right.
No, you could play other sports without very much equipment, is what I'm trying to say. In football, a pickup game in football is not like football practice.
Right.
A pickup game in football is not going to help you on Friday nights because you have to put on that uniform, you have to put on that equipment.
Right.
So ours is a unique sport because you can't play it unless you get used to wearing all of this stuff. So we don't get the same benefit by telling our kids to go out here and just throw a football around
Right.
as maybe a basketball coach would get in saying, you 5 take on these 5, let's go full court, let me see what you do.
Right.
They're playing basketball, and it's very much like how the conditions are going to be in a game.
Right.
Football, it's completely different because once you put on those pads, it's just different than touch football. So you ask these guys to do something on during the regular season. 7-on-7 is great. Touch football is great. But it's really not the game till you put on the pads. So spring practice, again, gives you the opportunity to get used to wearing those pads that you've got to wear in order to play the game. So, that's 5. I'm sure there's 5 or 6 more advantages for spring practice. But those are 5 that I think are important and relevant. And I'm just really glad that the state of Tennessee allows us those 10 days. Actually, we have 15 days to get in 10 practices.
Okay.
So, you can spread it out over 3 weeks if you wish. We could be in spring practice right now. We have it in May because it gives some of the other sports times to finish up. If they keep on going, great. If they falter, then those kids can be with us. But we go in May, and we usually go 10 straight days, and we're done.
Now, do you get most of your staff here for that? They're all here?
Yes. The only thing, I got 2 coaches, our receiver coach and our safeties coach also coach track.
Okay.
And we strongly encourage our players to run track. If they miss spring practice because they're running track, gives us a chance to look at somebody else.
Sure.
We encourage our kids to play any sport they want. I played all 3 sports in high school. I played baseball, basketball, and football. And if a kid wants to play that, that's fine. If he wants to specialize, to me, that's a mom and dad and player decision. It's not a coach's decision because this is high school. And so I think there's benefits from them playing other sports. They work different muscles. They stay in competition, so if they miss spring practice because they're involved in another sport, I'm not worried about that kid. He's getting competition. He's getting work every day.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Nate. Enjoyed it.
This has been fun. And as always, you guys keep watching the Quickscreen show every Tuesday. And we'll catch up with you next Tuesday again. Have one more coach coming to you here from the Knoxville area, or Knoxville. I'm down south now. I got used to saying just the Ville.
That's all right.
Not the Ville.
That's all right.
But you've been in Sevierville, Tennessee, at Sevier County High School with Coach Steve Brewer. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next Tuesday, coach 'em up.